Here's a few tips that can keep you from harm. In case of an earthquake, you gotta stay calm. Move away from doors, windows, and things that can fall. Try not to use steps or elevators at all.
Drop, protect your head on your face. Don't go running all over the place.
Cover,
under a bed or a table, against a wall that's firm and stable.
Hold on,
you must hold on, don't panic, stay calm.
Don't move until the shaking stops.
Here it is.
Drop, cover, and hold on.
Drop, cover, and hold on. In case of an earthquake.
Drop, cover, and hold on.
Learn how to protect yourself during an earthquake. Log on to weready.org. That's weready.org for more information.
This is the Aedes aegypti mosquito that spreads the Zika, chikungunya, and dengue viruses. Search for its breeding sites and destroy them. This is the Aedes aegypti mosquito that spreads the Zika, chikungunya, and dengue viruses. Protect yourself from the bite of this mosquito.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Lowering the sodium content in children's diets today can help prevent heart disease later in their life, especially for those who are overweight. Shake the salt habit, shop smart and cook smart. Use less or no salt when cooking. Try using fresh herbs and seasonings to add more flavor. Limit the consumption of salty snacks. Take the time to carefully read the nutrition labels on food products to identify those high in salt and choose the healthier options. Remember, no more than 2 grams of salt per day from all food sources for children under 11 years of age.
Jamaicans, look on the murder rate. You think that normal? We need to get every illegal gun and save our country.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
People always say government must be held accountable. But is whose job to keep government accountable, and what that really mean? Well, you see, when ministers and public officials have to provide answers for decisions made and can face consequences for those actions and decisions, that means they're being held accountable. Keeping government accountable is a key responsibility of our elected representatives, and the Parliament provides special tools or mechanisms just for this. As citizens, we need to understand how they work so we can play our part to ensure that the members of Parliament we elect are using the tools and doing their job well. Here are 4 of the primary tools you should understand and talk to your MP about. Tool number 1, Minister Statements. To effectively monitor the government, MPs need to stay informed. Every Tuesday when Parliament sits, different cabinet ministers are scheduled to give an update on decisions they're making on our behalf. These updates are called Statements by Ministers. They cover a wide range of national issues that other MPs, media, and citizens may have questions about and wish to examine further. That brings us to tool number 2. What you do when you want information? You ask questions, and that's why we have Question Time. Both opposition and government MPs can submit questions to the Prime Minister or Cabinet Ministers for details on, for example, how a contract was awarded or expenditure to purchase tablets for schools. So if you ever have a question for a government minister, try asking through your MP. After all, that's why they're your political representatives. They should represent your questions and concerns to the government. Tool number 3, Parliamentary Debates. When cabinet ministers present the government's proposals for new policies, laws, and programs, parliamentary debates allow both opposition and government MPs to air concerns, make suggestions, and endorse proposals. If you ever watch those debates, you know they can get a little fiery. But the debate is important as it informs decisions and continues until a vote is taken on the way forward. Then we have tool number 4, Parliamentary Committees. The general sittings of Parliament are not always sufficient for detailed examination of government work, so oversight committees are formed using government and opposition members to do just that. Some committees like the PAC and the PAAC are in place for an entire parliamentary term. Their job is to monitor the use of public funds to find ways to increase value and efficiency while reducing waste and corruption. Cabinet and state ministers are not appointed to oversight committees since they are a part of the government. Some committees are formed when a need arises. For example, joint select committees are formed to review draft policies or legislation or to probe other matters of serious national importance. Members of these committees are both opposition and government MPs and senators, and these committees will usually invite citizens to share their opinions, concerns, and recommendations. So there you have it, 4 accountability tools of Parliament that are used to make sure government run right. Visit jamja.org to find contact information for your MP. Invite them to meet with the community so they can better represent your issues and concerns in Parliament and keep government accountable. Get involved and let's make Jamaica land we love, Jamaica land we own, and Jamaica land we run well. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union and the Inter-American Development Bank in partnership with the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica.
Brethren, the road signs make the traffic environment safe. The green light means go. Red means stop. Amber also means stop. Yeah man, it don't mean you must speed up. And get this, even if the light's on green, when the traffic is thick, don't bother move off and block the intersection. And please, don't stop on a pedestrian crossing. Look out for children, the disabled and the elderly. Follow the signs so they all can arrive alive. Be a good road user. Obey the road signs and look out for each other.
The National Family Planning Board now presents a parenting tip from L.R. Nost. It's not our job to toughen our children up to face a cruel and heartless world. It's our job to raise children who will make the world a little less cruel and heartless.
I've been in agriculture now 10 years in Jamaica and 15 years in Florida. Well, I got in agriculture because I have a deep-seated passion for agriculture and it's fruitful. I grow Scotch bonnet peppers, sweet peppers, pumpkins, broccoli and sweet potatoes. Presently I feed into the hotel chains in Jamaica. With each tourist coming here, everybody have to eat, so it would be best for us to be feeding them with locally grown produce. And this is my passion and it's very fulfilling. So if you follow the guidelines and you have a true passion for agriculture, from the seed to harvesting it, it can be fruitful and you will put in a position where tourism is working for you.
See, you know, dog a sweat, but long hair cover it. But not everybody need to know when you are going through your hard times, you know. You can dress up, have fun, and carry on with life even though all is not well in your life. You see me here? Dog a sweat, but long hair cover it.
Welcome to the dark side. We pass them by, empty bodies filled with pain. Cup running over is the bitter taste of reality. A glimmer of hope left eons ago. To live is to breathe. This person grabs the rope and noose for the person who feels he or she has no use. To come to the dark side is to walk in my shoe. They say I am weird. Do they know I suffer mentally? They see me as an imposter, an aberration, a freak of nature. I regret my birth on this earth. To come to the dark side is to walk in my steps. Feet marred with mud, sweat and blood trimingled. Oh yes, I know those ropes. Do you? Help, help, no, no, you're hurting me. With all my might I tried, I cried. He never stopped, he pushed harder. No, I must act happy. Friend, family, stranger within my gates betrayed my trust. I am darkness, the destroyer of worlds. It came back positive. And they say everything in life that is positive is worth having. 2 times they were wrong. Abortion seems to be my option. He said he would always protect me. Scars abound where skin smooth as milk once grazed. Eyes black and blue from the love you thought you knew. Callous hands, the culprit. Oops, he comes. I must go. I have to go. You don't live in my shoe. You will never know. A cry for hunger bellows. Baby in pampers, mouths to feed. You are worthless. How can you call yourself a man? Anger ripens in his soul. There is no opportunity, so he acts out. Society is left without 2 promising souls. Blood money. For it, he forever remains thirsty. Welcome to the dark side. Here, monsters abound. You have 1 week to live. The doctor whispers. But why me? How could this? But I live healthily. Life is so unfair. To come to the dark side is to accept we cry alone, aloud in silence. Happiness? A figment of the imagination. Help? Endlessly out of reach. I come to the dark side. I know you are there. This day would always come. What you do next will make the difference. Is anybody out there? Anybody listening? The dark side is real. Be a neighbor. Help a friend. Some are seeking their life to end.
Yes, walk right over there and drop it in the bin. Reuse that wastewater from your kitchen for the garden. Get your hands dirty and plant a tree. Farmers, hold off on the pesticides, especially near our rivers. Do your part to protect our watersheds so we can preserve the source of our drinking water. Every act to protect our watersheds counts. Start now.
In case of an earthquake and the place starts shaking.
Drop, cover, and hold on.
Drop, cover, and hold on. In case of an earthquake.
There's a few tips that can keep you from harm. In case of an earthquake, you gotta stay calm. Move away from doors, windows, and things that can fall. Try not to use steps or elevators at all.
Drop, protect your head on your face. Don't go running all over the place.
Cover,
under a bed or a table, against a wall that's firm and stable.
Hold on,
you must hold on. Don't panic, stay calm.
Don't move until the shaking stops.
Here it is.
Drop, cover, and hold on.
Drop, cover, and hold on. In case of an earthquake.
Drop, cover, and hold on.
Learn how to protect yourself during an earthquake. Log on to weready.org. That's weready.org for more information.
We are now open and ready to take our women in who are being abused. The facility will accept clients even while we continue to receive donations and build out our programs to help women to rebuild their lives and get back on their feet. I use this opportunity Madam Speaker, to read out the 24-hour hotline numbers for women who need the shelter. 876-553-0372 or 876-929-2997. The other two properties are now in early reconstruction and or refurbishing stages and will be transformed quickly into safe spaces for women.
Raymond Poiser, Acting Senior Director for Urban Renewal and Development. Urban Renewal provides the strategic direction towards the revitalization of our urban spaces. So it's really looking at strategies through policies, programs, and
They were seeing him.
You not hearing him, Mamela? Anybody hearing him?
Showing no breaks, I'm invincible. Yeah, I win every single game.
We're looking for great things this season, and I know you believe it within your very core. And so we have committed to continue the support behind you and in front of you and beside you so that you can excel and you can do well and you can be your best self.
I'm unstoppable. I'm a butcher with no breaks. I'm invincible. Yeah, I win every single game.
Short opening remarks. At the last meeting, the committee concluded our deliberations on the outstanding issues, with the exception of the proposal regarding the definition of significant power outage, which will be dealt with at this meeting. The verbal response of the Attorney General's Chamber to guidance sought by the Ministry concerning its interpretation of Section 55(1)(b) of the Act was provided by Mrs. Masado. During the last meeting, she was asked to put this response in writing and submit it to Ms. Campbell so it could be formalized at this meeting. At today's meeting, we'll also review the items highlighted in yellow in the general matrix, which was circulated via email this morning. If there are any other outstanding matters, those will be identified in the draft report of the committee and can be addressed during the review of that draft report. So, members, I think we're coming on to hopefully the final meeting today. And if so, that would have brought us just in time before the close for the Christmas season. And of course, obviously, put us in a position where January morning, we can have the report, the draft report circulated, and of course, final comments on the review. So without further ado, I'll do the confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on November 9th. At the end, so I ask members to just look back through it for me, please. And in the interest of time, I'm going to ask Ms. Campbell if she will take us through the matrix and also deal with the letter from the AG chambers so we can formalize that as well. So Ms. Campbell from MSET, over to you. Not hearing you. Yeah, hearing you now. Go ahead, let me hear you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Committee.
A little more volume if you can, please.
Am I any clearer?
Yes, you are. Go right ahead, please.
Okay. In relation to the matters you highlighted in your opening, Minister, so I'm confirming that we received the written response from the chambers under the signature of Carissa Mesado. We received that on the 10th of November. So in relation to section 45, subsection 15, the JPS recommended that the definition of major system failure be amended to align with the IEEE standard. So we consulted with the OUR, as we indicated in the last few meetings, and based on what was expressed and our reading of the document, the ministry is of the view that the definition of major system failure should remain as it is in the Act here at subsection 15, the extract, subsection 16, the extract is on screen. We, however, recommend that the second limb here, which is the main issue JPS highlighted, in relation to that, we consider that that particular requirement could be enhanced along the lines recommended by the JPS, but in the place of the formula that they provided, the requirement should be to include a threshold for the number of customers, the load and time duration derived using the IEEE threshold for a major event day. So in addition to the number of customers affected, there should also be a load and time duration element added to that. The ministry proposes further that the Act is amended to include a requirement for the single buyer to determine and publish the 5-year rolling average for the threshold, that which I mentioned for the second limb. And this should be published after consultation with the OUR, and the threshold, if necessary, would then be looked at within the 5-year review cycle of the Act. So let me repeat, we're also proposing that they be made to require that the single buyer determine and publish the 5-year rolling average for the threshold defining the major system failure after validation by the OUR, and within the 5-year review cycle, the threshold would then be reviewed to see if there are any changes that might be required.
Scamble, through the chair. Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Let me see if I can get on this thing. Trying to get the video. Yeah. So my name is Courtney Francis. Good afternoon, all. So we had looked at the recommendation from JPS as it relates to section 4516A, and we have a fundamental problem with the amendment to criteria 2, because they're trying to introduce or incorporate a component of a voluntary standard into a parent legislation. So that is the fundamental issue. However, if you go into technicalities, what we have now is that you have a customer count parameter that you are trying to superimpose a duration index on. And that doesn't make any sense. Because if you have a major system failure, whether it's partial or it's a full total shutdown of the system, to get the customer count numbers is a very simple task because all customers are attached to feeders and transformers. So you don't need a TMED, which is a statistical number to determine a customer count, which is essentially a duration indicator, as I've mentioned before. Secondly, based on the construct that we use to deal with reliability measurements for JPS, if you incorporate a TMED arrangement or a TMED construct, you might very well be in a position that you can't determine a major system failure until the end of the reporting period, which normally can go all the way up to the end of the year, the reporting period. Now, that would conflict with Section 45, paragraph 11 of the Act, where once a system failure is initiated, shortly thereafter, the system operator has a duty to inform the minister and the office to say that we have a situation of a major system failure. So if we are relying on that construct to determine a major system failure, that is a major distortion. So that's a problem. And when you talk about major events, as we understand it across the industry, is a situation in which events impact the system that are beyond the capabilities, design capabilities, and operating limits of the system. In most instances, based on our experience, those relates to major storm events, hurricanes, or other disaster, weather-related disaster events that overwhelm the system. They don't necessarily relate to major system failures, because major system failures, how we understand it in the Jamaican power system, are system shutdown events, partial or full, where there's a equipment failure or a number of equipment failures, generation shortage, or operator negligence. So if we're trying to intertwine the two concepts, then we are having a problem. So we have to be congruent and we have to be consistent in how we interpret these industry standards. The third point that I would raise is that the IEEE standard is specifically an electricity distribution reliability standard. It does not cover or transcend the entire power system. And so you have metrics that you use for generations and transmission different from the standards that you use for the distribution. So we have to be mindful of those considerations. So with those considerations as those factors, we, the OER, have a fundamental problem if we're going to incorporate any resemblance of TMED into the Electricity Act, where you are trying to define a major system failure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, any response? Ms. Campbell?
Chair, this is highly technical for me, so I will defer to the technical team if they have a response.
Anyone from MSET?
Good afternoon, Minister. Todd Johnson here from MSET. Yes, we still do stand by the OUR on such cases. One, the 17th of April 2016, for a major system failure defined JPS system outage analysis, OUR report. And of course, there are variables or criteria that defines a major system failure. And as well as the number of customers. And by the definition, we'd like to actually ensure that it sticks to the definition, which is why we are also in support of the standard. And if it is that we are not dictating or outlining the performance of our grid with respect to standards, I'd like to ask the OUR then, by what premise are we then outlining or categorizing the performance of our grid? Thank you.
If you want me to respond, by me. So, Chair, what we have in the existing price control regime for JPS is what we call a Q factor mechanism. And that Q factor mechanism fundamentally captures force outages that impacts the electricity system that results in, let me get back this there, that results in supply interruptions to customers. Under that existing framework, what happens or what obtains is that you use the indicators to establish the performance for JPS against certain targets, which the OUR has to set. So it happens that when you have a major system failure, customers are affected. So it forms a part of the generalized Q factor or quality of service regime that we have, which is translated into a penalty or a reward for JPS. So we have that construct. And so if you look into the Electricity Act, if you try to incorporate this standard or this team-made arrangement, what you are doing is to open the door where major system failure events and the impact of such events in terms of disruption of service to customers will not be featured as part of that Q factor construct. So essentially, there will be no mechanism to hold JPS into account for a major system failure, because under the current legislation, under Section 45, there's no measure to deal with or to hold JPS accountable for a major system failure. And in some instances, based on our experience and investigation since 2006, we have seen in a number of cases where, major system failures would have been caused by some, things might not have been in place. And so if you open that door to put in this standard as incorporator or align it with the act, you're opening the door to diminish the incentive for performance under the Q factor regime by the major events being excluded completely from that construct. What we exclude at the moment are force majeure events and events that have to do with extreme weather events. Those are major events and they are defined under the standard. We do not include those in the calculations. Major system failures, and I reiterate, are normally they occur because of force outages due to equipment failures in JPS system or operator negligence. So I'm just stating that as a fact. So we have to take those into consideration when we are amending. My proposition from the OER standpoint is that we have the electricity sector codes. We could make reference to the standard in the codes because essentially it's a voluntary standard. It provides some guidance for distribution reliability. But I strongly don't believe that it should be part of a parent legislation, which then affects the price control mechanism for JPS in terms of their tariff performance. Thank you very much.
So members, we have to be very cautious in relation to how we deal with this, because obviously OUR is a regulator and they have issues specifically in relation to making sure that the operators are held accountable. I'm not sure, is there any other member that would like to comment on this? Member Golin Campbell, any of the legal heads?
Not at this time, Chair. Still sort of mulling it. And forgive me, Chair, I'm not doing a lot of talking today. I'm done with the flu.
I'm sorry to hear. This matter will have to be revisited. It has been put out there, and then we can revisit it at the end of the meeting or allow some time, because this is a very, very, very sensitive matter, and the OUR has serious concerns, and I want to make sure that those are looked at properly. Has MSET had any discussions with the OUR on this matter before coming to the meeting with this position?
We had their comments in writing, Chair, which was considered internally.
Mr. Johnson, you have any response to Mr. Francis?
I take the comment of incorporation into the codes, the book of codes, which would be also appropriate for incorporation of such a standard. And of course, the book of codes is also due for update, so I think it may be an opportunity.
All right, Mr. Campbell, go ahead. Mr. Johnson, we'll have discussions after this, but I want to find a middle of the road to satisfy OUR as best as possible in whatever the final amendment is.
Noted, Chair. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Campbell.
Right. So related to the matter of the definition of the system failure, JPS gave a related proposition that significant power outage needs to be reviewed along the lines they proposed for major system failure that we were discussing. They proposed that the definition should be in line with the definition of major system failure. The ministry is of the view that major system failure differs from significant power outage, and so we do not accept the JPS's proposal. We note that the Electricity Book of Codes defines or has a measurement for how to identify significant power outage, and it says that as the minimum, it is a minimum or combination of all of the following: A, the manual or fault-related tripping of system circuits, plants, or apparatus affecting more than 20% of the distribution system customer base. B, overloading, that is loading in excess of 1/10% of the rated capacity of system circuits and plants, or system instability. D, breaches of safety rules or procedures that resulted in danger or injury to members of the public or the system operator or to the user, employees, or their representatives. So this is some guidance in the Book of Codes as to how we may identify what is significant power outage. And we are also of the view that given that the Electricity Book of Codes would be updated soon, that it would be in order to maybe make it clearer how significant power outage differ from a major system failure. And in that review, any other changes in the market may be incorporated.
Chair, if I can just make one comment on that. Ms. Campbell, I concur with your position. So that is the OUR position also, that there's a fundamental differentiation also between a major power outage or a significant power outage and a major system failure. And we have information to show that. So the nuances associated with those conditions can be trashed out in the code. And so the code is up for review, as you quite rightly mentioned. So we concur with that. Because one thing that you don't want to do again, and I'm very keen on it, once you start unifying all of these definitions, then the same problem that we have mentioned about the performance and the incentive mechanism come back to answer. So I concur with you on that. So that is our position also. Thank you.
Chair, if we may mention one other matter. So section 45 and 45 subsection 16 and section 47 subsection 6 were the only two matters we identified at the last meeting to deliver a presentation on to the Joint Select Committee. However, in our internal review, there is one other matter that we consider to put forward to the Joint Select Committee at this time, and if we may be allowed to do so, Chair, I'll go ahead.
Sure. Go ahead. So that would be 3 matters?
Yes, so this will be 3 now.
Go ahead.
Okay. So under the proposed definition, under the definitions that the committee went through in the earlier sittings of this review, the PSOJ had recommended that tri-generation be also defined along with cogeneration. The Act currently defines cogeneration only, and it means the production of both useful heat and electrical power from a single generating source. Now, the only mention of cogeneration is at section 18, subsection 8. And that provision reads, the minister shall, having regard to the integrated resource plan, the size and efficiency of a cogeneration plant, and the public interest, prescribe the excess capacity that a cogeneration plant will be permitted to supply to the system. Now, in light of the fact that the current policy of the government of Jamaica which provides for the greater use of mature renewable energy for electricity generation, and with that is the movement away from fossil fuel type generation, we're of the view that the PSOJ's recommendation for the definition of tri-generation to be attached to the definition of cogeneration in the Act, that this is not accepted. And we also propose that the definition of cogeneration and the related substantive provision at section 18, subsection 8 be deleted from the Act.
Any comments, members? Silence is consent. Go ahead, Ms. Campbell.
That is the extent of the matters I have to present, Minister.
All right, so I take it that the only thing outstanding now would be that that clause, that amendment in relation to the significant power outage.
Major system failure, Minister.
Major system failure.
Yes. I believe Mr. Johnson was making the suggestion that perhaps it could be reflected in the code and not the Act.
So I want to know if Mr. Francis from OUR is okay with that. Does that cover you?
Yeah, I would not have no objection. It's just what we're going to write in there.
And you see, this situation is not. This is very timely because just today we had a situation, as you are aware of, and there have been quite a few since I took over responsibility in 2020. So I want to make sure that it's very clear, as you said, Mr. Francis, in relation to acts of God that are obviously taken into consideration, but outside of that, they must be held accountable 100% in relation to any system failure or significant outage.
So yeah, I don't have an objection to the code because we had actually put that forward in our response to the ministry. One of the items that Ms. Campbell raised that we are interested in also is a threshold for the demand in terms of the load loss during the system failure event, because that is one of the things that actually make the threshold a bit low. So if we can insert some condition, whether 25% load or whatever it is, that will actually bolster the definition of major system failure, because at the moment the threshold is a bit low.
Ms. Campbell?
I'm in agreement, Sir Chair. Even though in the constituency, there is no water for basically 3 weeks in many other communities because of a failure of JPS. That's what Water Commission is saying. The pump is not pumping the water because of a failure of a JPS, and the citizens are suffering, you know? So something has to be in there to hold them accountable with situations like these.
If you can give me some more information after the meeting on that, Mr. Miller, I'll check on it for you. Ms. Campbell?
I appreciate this, Sir Chair. Thanks.
You taking into account what you just indicated?
About defining the threshold, we support that.
So I take it that the suggestion made and the acceptance by Mr. Johnson in relation to putting it in the codes covers the concerns you had, Mr. Francis. Am I right? Mr. Francis?
Sorry, Chair. Yes, the code could take care of that, because at the end of the day, we will be reviewing the code. So we'll allow it to be reflected in the most appropriate way.
And of course, obviously, there'll be consultations based on the fact that the code is up for review as well, eh? So
Indeed.
There has to be consultations between MSET and OUR to make sure.
And JPS.
And JPS, right, yeah. To make sure that there's consensus in relation to.
Yes, Chair. So we can proceed on that.
All right. Ms. Campbell, what else?
That's all, Minister, on the list.
All right. So let me ask the members if there's anything else they would like to raise. As was indicated, there will be a review. You will get the draft report to review and make your comments. And if there's anything that you find that you want to address. So this is not the end of it, but this would be the end of the actual review on the Electricity Act 2015. So let me just do some housekeeping. Can we get a confirmation of the minutes held on November 9th, which was the last meeting that we had? And once we do that, if there's any matters arising. Member Miller, can you propose a confirmation?
I do, Sir Chair.
Can I get a second, Member Campbell?
So seconded, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any matters arising from those minutes? All right, I want to thank Ms. Beckford and the entire team at Parliament and all of the other. Member Paulwell, welcome, sir.
I'm so sorry to be late, Chairman. You know that it's not because of disrespect.
I know. I apologize for you that you had an urgent matter in your constituency.
Yes.
Were you able to catch the last summary?
I just got on.
All right. For just for your purposes, Member Paulwell, Ms. Campbell, you just want to give a quick review for Member Paulwell since he was late, and I would like him to make sure that he's comfortable, despite the fact, Member Paulwell, that the draft report will be circulated, and of course, anything that jumps out at you can be dealt with. But still, in summary, I'll ask Ms. Campbell just to give you a summary very quickly. It was well managed. There was an issue with OUR and MSET, but I think we resolved that. So let her just give you three issues. It was originally 2, and she added 1. Ms. Campbell, go right ahead.
Right, and I'll take off my video to save my battery.
No problem. No problem.
And the color in the background.
Minister Vaz wears that color very well.
Go ahead, Ms. Campbell.
So we reported to the committee, and in relation to JPS's proposal, in relation to the definition of major system failure at section 45, subsection 16, we recognize from the existing provision in the Act that the JPS's issue mainly fell in relation to this second limb here, which is in yellow highlight, affects at least 1,000 customers. So this is part of the elements of how a major system failure is identified and classified. Now they propose that the IEEE standard should be applied in relation to that. The OUR indicated that to do so in the Act, the JPS would not be held responsible for any effects owing to, their equipment failure or any action on their part which result in loss or damage to customers. And they proposed that the threshold be made clear, properly set out in the electricity sector book of codes. The Ministry on reflection agreed to that, for that to be done, and hence it was indicated to the committee during the discussions prior to your coming on, Member Paul. Related to that, in section 47, subsection 6, is a reference to significant power outage. So the JPS indicated in their proposal that the definition of significant power outage should be in line with the definition of major system failure that they proposed at section 45, subsection 16. The ministry, in its position to the committee, indicated that major system failure differs from significant power outage. It was noted that there is some standard for identifying the significant power outage currently in the Book of Codes, but that would need additional information in terms of how it is applied and other key elements that may be used, and to make it clear that there is a distinction between significant power outage and major system failure. The OUR accepts too that the Electricity Book of Codes is the proper place for the significant power outage elements to be promulgated, and that will be done in the review that will come up next. The review of the codes, that is. We also presented to the committee a proposal for cogeneration, the definition, and the related substantive provision at section 18, subsection 8, to be removed from the Act. And the basis on which we propose that is in recognition of the policy of the government directing the use of mature renewable energy for electricity generation and the steady movement away from reliance on fossil fuel-based electricity power generation. And in that respect, we did not accept, we recommended that the proposed amendment to the definition of cogeneration to add trigeneration, which was submitted by the PBCJ, be not accepted. And that was the extent of the final submission we made to the committee.
Thanks very much. I really appreciated that summary. Minister, thanks very much for facilitating that.
So I was just about to say, Member Paulwell, that I wanted to thank Ms. Beckford and the team from Parliament for obviously doing the secretarial work along with all of the other ministries and agencies, the Attorney General's Chambers, Office of Parliamentary Counsel, Legal Reform Department, Office of Utilities Regulation, Consumer Affairs Commission, Jamaica Public Service, not to mention those who contributed in writing to the committee for their, obviously, their interest, and to say that it is a relief that we have been able to conclude it on this side of the year, the calendar year, so that we can look forward to 2024 to have this now obviously go through the stage to be tabled in Parliament. Ms. Beckford, I know it's Christmas time, but can you give us an indication as to when you think the draft report will be ready for members, based on the fact that obviously we want to make sure and take it to its final through all its stages, so that obviously it can be tabled. You would probably have a better idea as to the timeline. How long will it take for this to be compiled and obviously presented to in draft, and then obviously get it to Parliament?
Chairman, I'm working towards the end of December to finalize, to put the draft together and then send it out, and you can have a meeting in January to start the review of the draft report. So hopefully before the end of January, it will be tabled.
Excellent. I don't expect you to work on Christmas Day or New Year's Day, but you can work, and I'll give you a Boxing Day too, so you can take those three for sure. But that's great. If you could do that, that would be good. If it goes into early January, we fully understand based on the season that we are in. But thanks very much for that. So members, you are hearing that we are working towards having this concluded before the end of January. So I would ask you, once you do get the draft report, to spend some time on it so that we can actually get it circulated and get the signatures of the members of the Joint Select Committee.
Could I just also join with you in commending the technical staff? It has not been easy work. It has been a lot of work. And I think they deserve every commendation. All members of the technical team who have been with us.
100%, member, and I can tell you I need to thank the members of the Joint Select Committee, especially those who were faithful in their attendance. I know that we got a little tired at the end, and as a matter of fact, the last two meetings were much more delayed than the other ones. This one was 2:17. We usually start within the first 5 minutes, but I understand. But for those who really made it a point of duty to attend, and for those who deputized for me when I could not, I cannot give you enough appreciation for that. It shows that teamwork is always good. And it's always good, as I said, Member Paulwell, to work with my opposition counterparts, because at the end of the day, we're doing this for the benefit of the people and the country, Jamaica, land we love. So I really want to say thanks so much to everybody, and to say that we have concluded the review of the Joint Select Committee for the Electricity Act 2015. Congratulations to all, and we look forward to obviously getting the final so that we can implement the new changes and of course strengthen and better the act for the benefit of everyone. Thanks again. Have a great day, great Christmas, peaceful Christmas, and of course at the end of the day, remember those less fortunate. Thank you very much. God bless you all.